I tried to persuade him for you. He's having none of it. Instead, Japanese markets, they've closed up despite a U-turn by the government on this country's prospects, Owen.
Well, you could say, Stuart, a more cynical person than me would say that these EU leaders have done a pretty good job of burying their heads in the sand, sort of going ostrich for the last 3 years now. Let's leave that, though, for now. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Asian markets, or particularly the Japanese markets, have managed to find some gains this Tuesday. Remember, most of the Asian markets are closed for the Chinese Lunar New Year, so there's some very thin volumes in terms of trading going on. And despite the fact that the Japanese government has said that the Japanese economy is likely to reverse by around 0.5% over 2012, that's compared to just a few months ago when the same government was expecting growth of around 0.5%. So quite a significant change there.
The other big story really today, the EU embargo on Iranian oil. So far not hit crude trading too hard, though.
Which suggests that it was all priced in, because remember, we've had warnings about this for weeks, if not months, about this embargo. So it's safe to say, I think, that the markets have priced in the impact of the loss of Iranian oil. You can see there the price of Brent crude. That's trading on the European markets, which of course will be most affected by this embargo. Around $110 a barrel, just slightly up around 1% today. Remember that OPEC has said recently it thinks that the correct price for oil these days is around $100 a barrel. So that's in line, basically, with their assessment of where the oil market should be right now.
So the EU then formalised its strong-arming of Iran over its nuclear programme, but that pressure likely to hit some of Europe's most troubled economies hardest. Ketavan Gorjestani explains.
The second largest buyer of Iranian oil is moving on. The EU embargo is a blow to the Iranian economy since the bloc buys up 20% of Iran's oil exports. But with the Eurozone struggling with a debt crisis, the move could also hit Europe's most fragile economies. Greece, Spain, and Italy soak up around 2/3 of Iran's oil sales to the EU. Greece gets about 34% of its oil from Iran, Spain 15%, and Italy 12%. To give these countries time to wean themselves off Iranian oil, existing contracts will be allowed to run until at least July. But replacing Iranian oil won't be easy.
These countries get a discount on Iranian oil, which is a plus since they're struggling economically. But Iranian oil also has a specific quality to it that is compatible with European refineries, so they'll have to find the same quality.
The new round of sanctions could also have dire consequences on the global economy. Oil prices rose at the news of the embargo, and things could get worse. Iran renewed threats to close down the Strait of Hormuz, a strategic waterway through which 1/3 of the world's oil transits.
Closing down the Strait of Hormuz is the Islamic Republic's last card. But closing down Hormuz is a double-edged sword. It will definitely damage Iran as well as Europe and the US.
Despite Iranian warnings and threats, Saudi Arabia has said it could compensate for the loss of Iranian oil, and the Saudi reaction will be closely watched.
OK, well, let's stay with the EU, because while those foreign ministers and Brussels were imposing those embargoes on Iran, finance ministers were left drumming their fingers a little bit over the latest in the Greek bailout saga. They were hoping to announce a breakthrough deal on that vital second €130 billion bailout. But finance ministers say some private investors are holding up a new agreement by demanding too much interest in a new bond swap designed to give the Greek government some breathing space financially. Well, Frédéric Simon, our correspondent in Brussels, has been joining us and has been following that. He joins us from Brussels. Frédéric, good morning to you. It's quite rare to get foreign ministers a little bit hot under the collar, but they were very frustrated at this latest meeting and didn't really hide their feelings.
Yes, Eurozone finance ministers are running out of patience and have given Greece until the next EU summit on Monday next week to conclude a deal with the banks on the debt restructuring plan. Europeans are demanding that banks accept lower interest rates on their Greek bonds under a massive debt write-down that should see Athens' debt cut by up to 50%. Now, the banks said over the weekend that they had come to the limit of what losses they could concede without the restructuring being assimilated to a default of Athens. Negotiations on the issue have been going on for months now since the EU and the IMF agreed on the second bailout package for Greece in October last year, worth €130 billion. A final agreement with the banks is expected later this week now, ahead of the European summit on Monday.
OK, Frédéric, many thanks for that update. Frédéric Simon in Brussels there.
Now then, if you find the term European Financial Stability Facility, bit of a tongue twister, I do, take heart, because its successor is the European Stability Mechanism. Much easier. It's supposed to get up and running this summer, but confusingly, leaders are now talking about running both funds alongside each other, just to complicate things. Catherine Gillamix takes us through what the ESM is supposed to do.
The European Stability Mechanism, or ESM, is scheduled to start up in July. The €500 billion fund is the permanent solution the EU has come up with to help end the debt crisis.
Regarding the ESM, on which we agree and we want to implement, we continue our efforts to restore the confidence in the markets.
The ESM is meant to replace the temporary bailout fund, the European Financial Stability Facility, or EFSF. But they differ in a number of ways. The ESM will be a fully fledged intergovernmental body, whereas the EFSF was a crisis tool set up as a company without the need for difficult negotiations over changing the EU treaty. The ESM will make its own decisions, not through the Eurogroup. While the EFSF is backed solely by guarantees provided by Eurozone states, the ESM will have its own capital base of €80 billion. And the ESM will only be available for countries that also join a pact toughening budget discipline. The European Stability Mechanism will run side by side with the European Financial Stability Facility until it expires next year. Some argue that during this time, both funds should run at full capacity, giving it a total firepower of around €1 trillion.
Increasing the overall size of the ESM, I didn't say doubling it, increasing the size. And identifying a clear and credible timetable for making it operational would help greatly.
But as a main contributor to the fund, Germany disagrees. It wants the two funds combined to total a maximum of €500 billion.
Now, floods in Thailand last year put an estimated 500 million people out of work and cost the economy 10 times that amount. Many factories are still not reopened in the wake of the devastation, and with the new rainy season fast approaching, there's concern that vital foreign investment may just dry up. Cyril Payen sent us this report from Thailand.
It's time for reconstruction in Thailand. This paradise for foreign manufacturers was badly hit by the recent floods. So far, only 15% of the hundreds of affected companies have reopened. Employees at this Japanese electronics manufacturer toil day and night to restore production. They say that they've had to go it alone.
Government, not yet, not anything else. Nothing else. From government, nothing.
To stay or not to stay? Is Thailand still a secure bet for the billions of yen or dollars invested by multinationals? For this Japanese manager, the decision has already been made.
We're staying for the moment.
Preventing an investment drain in Thailand is an urgent priority, one with a direct impact on hundreds of thousands of jobs.
If I'm before you today, it is so we can rest assured that we will build our future together. We will prove that Thailand is resilient and that it knows how to bounce back.
Top businessmen came to Government House to hear her speech.
I'm quite confident that all the foreign investors will give us the confidence, because normally that this is the whole plan that we clear out to the public, and along the way I think we have also get closer with all the investors to make sure that all the problem has been solved. Yeah, so we feel confident that.
Thailand sustained $45 billion in damage. $25 billion will be needed for the reconstruction alone.
And just before we go, Owen's got a milestone for us, a milestone figure for YouTube.
Yeah, 4 billion views a day, Stuart, is the amount of people going on YouTube every day right now. That's the equivalent of 60 hours of video being uploaded every minute on this site. Important figure for Google, particularly. Remember that its earnings in the last quarter were disappointing. Shares have taken a bit of a hit in the wake of that, so it needs a good news story right now. If you want to watch Stuart's best moments, of course, remember, France 24 has its very own YouTube channel. You can check us out. Just tap in France 24 English. And as I say, you can find the best of Stuart on there.
It's very short. Thanks, Owen. He's back in around about an hour's time, and Claire's got latest headlines after the break.
Every week, France 24 brings you all the latest news from the world of sailing and water sports. Follow the action from the major international sailing events. Catch up with the latest technological advances from the boat shows. Join us. Become part of the crew. Connect with the world of sea lovers and water sports enthusiasts. Follow the Call of the Sea with Whirlwinds, Saturday, 12:40 p.m. Paris time on France 24.